go on to the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate to have this opportunity to speak to motion 103, a motion that I'm really pleased to support. Let's back up a little bit, and let's go back to first principles and understand what this motion is about. The motion calls for the government, for Parliament to express itself on three particular issues. Let me remind this House about what these issues are. The first one is that we're requesting, we need to recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear. Secondly, this motion requests that the Heritage Committee study how the government could develop a government-wide approach to reducing or eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia. And thirdly, this motion calls for us to collect data and to contextualize hate crime reports and to conduct needs assessments for impacted communities and to present these findings within 240 calendar days. Very simple, very easy to understand, and probably very easy to support. I'd like to talk about the first issue that this motion asks us to do, and that is to recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear. Mr. Speaker, I've been involved in politics now since the age of 14, coming up on 44 years. And I've been very actively involved in federal politics since I've come here in Ottawa in 1988. And there is something that has developed over the last almost 30 years now, which has really concerned me, and it's something that became so clear to me when we had those terrible, awful, tragic shootings in Quebec City at the beginning of the year. And it's the way we speak to each other. It's the way that we engage in conversation. It's the way that we refer to each other, how we disagree sometimes. And I'm not saying that we all have to hold hands and sing together and all get along all the time. But what I'm really talking about is the way we disagree. I've seen a real deterioration, Mr. Speaker, in the way that we engage in conversation, in the way that we tend to disagree. And it's grown more and more now that I see this in coffee shops, I see this in conversations. I see people, when they just disagree over a small item, they tend to demonize the other. And that would be fine if that just happened in personal conversations, but that has extended itself into the public realm of debate. Even sometimes here in our Parliament. But we've certainly seen this in newspapers and radios, on TV, and how we demonize the other. And I think the current group that we have been demonizing for the last 15 years or so is certainly the Muslim community. And I find it very distasteful. And I'll tell you why I find it very distasteful, because, Mr. Speaker, it's clear to you, I'm a member of a visible minority. And when I grew up in Montreal, I was one of two black families who grew up in our neighborhood. It was a predominantly Jewish neighborhood in Montreal. It was an Anglophone Jewish neighborhood, and we were we were one of two black families. So I sort of felt that I grew up in a minority within a minority within a minority within the larger minority of Quebec within North America. And that afforded me a really interesting perspective, Mr. Speaker. I was able to see what the majority was like and understand the point of view of the majority, yet not be a part of it. Being able to just step back a little bit and to have a different perspective, to hear a different point of view. And to me, that has always been a source of strength. And it's always been curious to me when I hear people make a discriminatory statement against another group of which I'm not a part of, and that's anti-Semitic remarks. I've heard a lot of that in my lifetime. And I always thought it funny because I was thinking, well, who are you telling this to? All you have to do is to remove the word Jew and replace it with black, and I'll feel terrible. And I know the sting of that. And no one should ever feel that. And over the last 15 years, I've been hearing a lot of hateful words towards the Muslim community. And I always think, that hurts me as much as it hurts anybody else. I'm a Roman Catholic, but to me it's just, how can you not see that the minority is not us? We all should feel that. If you're a woman, although you might be demographically a majority in this country, socioeconomically, it's clear that women are in the minority in terms of the power structures in which we have. So when we hear these comments and this kind of discrimination, it worries me. And I've been hearing more and more about it. And it seems that we try to pick on a group that is probably the least powerful group of our times. And we keep on doing that. Over the last 30 years, I've noticed how this has just progressed along. And this is one of the reasons why, Mr. Speaker, I have no problems supporting this motion. We're saying, let's take a step back here. Let's take a look at the way that we speak to each other. Let's try to say, are we engaging in conversation? Are we engaging in actions which leads to a climate of fear and hate towards a particular group? To me, that's what the most important thing that we could do with this motion, is to have the study. And I know there are people who might disagree in good faith on some aspects of it. Perhaps it's not as well defined as they would like it to be, or perhaps they want to include a whole bunch of other groups that have been discriminated against within the motion. That may be fine. But Mr. Speaker, we've done this before. As a parliament, we, as a body, in the short time that I've been elected, we have spoken out and taken a unanimous stance against Islamophobia. And there was no argument at that time for us to change the motion or define it in any other way. We know what we meant. We understood what it was trying to convey. And that was a motion that we could support. We're doing nothing more than that in this again, in this motion, motion 103. Mr. Speaker, I've said in this House before that words and symbols matter. And we've seen that in a climate of hate, in a climate of anger, of phobia of the Muslim community that we've heard on trash radio, or we've seen on disreputable news sources. We've seen this language happen. And I hate to say it, and I know a number of people are going to disagree with me on this, but those statements have consequences. Not that the person hearing it for the first time or will go out and commit a heinous crime like happened in Quebec City 2 short months ago. But it's the fact, Mr. Speaker, that we've legitimized that kind of debate, and that we brought it into the public realm. We need to bring it back. We need to study this. We need to find some ways to try to combat this, to change the way that we talk to each other. Because, Mr. Speaker, words and symbols do matter, and we do need to have a new way of speaking to it. I see that you're just about to stand up, Mr. Speaker. I hope to be able to just sum up this in my last minute whenever we continue with this debate. Thank you.
We now move to the right to